It's time for another Dice Tower review with Zee Garcia.
Hey everybody, today we are taking a look at a two-player card game called Trambahn. And in this one you are playing some station cards out in front of you. You are buying tramways and you are basically trying to score higher than your opponent with some clever card manipulation. Let me show you how the game works and then I'll tell you what I think of this one. So here's what the game looks like set up at the beginning of the game. Both players are going to have 6 cards in their hand, and these are the main kind of cards in the game. And they come in 4 colors, these 4 colors here. And they go from 1 through 10, and there's several copies of each. So each player starts with 6 in their hand. Each player starts with a certain amount of money, which is these cards turned over. Start player gets 12, second player gets 15. And then these cards are placed here on the table somewhere. These are the tramway cards, and there are several of these times 2, which are going to cost 5. After those run out, you'll have these times 3, which cost 10, and then times 4, which cost 15. You're going to stack them in this order, put them somewhere, and you are pretty much ready to begin. These 4 cards will be lined up somewhere on the table, and then the deck of cards is there. A round goes like this. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to play 1 or 2 cards as passengers. And what that means is from your hand of cards, you have to play 1 or 2 cards here as passengers. So I'm going to do this card here. This is what triggers scoring in the game. And whenever there are 4 passengers lined up here, so 4 cards have been played basically, then yellow will score, and then we'll wipe those 4 cards away. Here's what the scoring track looks like. You have a scoring pad, and there will be 10 times. You'll score 10 times basically, so that's going to happen in whatever colors, but it'll happen 10 times, and then the game will be over. High score wins, obviously. And so that's the first thing. That's my first step, will be playing that card there. Second thing I have to do is I have to place any number of cards as stations in front of me. That part is optional. I don't have to do that every round. But basically what that means is I can start collecting these in front of me. The way that works is I can start with whatever I want to. I can have multiple colors going even, and I can even have the same color going more than once. But every time I add cards to a set in front of me, the numbers must go up. So this is a 2. I'm going to start with the 2. And then I'll also play the 4 in brown right now as well. I've got these going. Since the 10 is the highest card, 5's not that low, I'm not going to choose to start these colors yet. Next up, you can place a number of cards as money on your money pile. And so these 3 cards, I'm going to now flip them over, throw them on my money pile. I've just made money. Next up, I have to purchase trains, and that means if I've got one of these going and it does not have a train, then I'm going to purchase one of these tramway cards. The cost is up here, and this is the multiplier for scoring, which I'll go over in 1 second. So I'm going to do this, and then I pay the 5 that I owe for that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's spent. These go back here. And lastly, on my turn, I draw cards until I have a hand of 6, which means from the deck here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's see what we've got. Okay, that's pretty good. So that means next round, I'll be able to continue growing this color if I'd like. I could start a different color if I want to. For example, this 8, 9. As you can see, the higher cards, if you've been noticing, have in the middle here a 2 instead of a 1. What is that number? The 10s, by the way, have a 3 there. That is where your score comes from. Once one of these rows, and by the way, my opponent now would have to play a card here somewhere, at least one or 2. As soon as the brown, let's say, has 4 cards played in front of it as passengers, then that color will score. And my score for that color right now would be 1, 2 times 2, so 4. If that's the first thing that scores, we write 4 here for me, whatever my opponent gets right there. if brown would score later in the game, let's say, and I've already played this and this, well, obviously now we are looking at 2, 3, 4, 5 times 2, then it's 10 points I get for that scoring. Now these cards stay here, and they can be scored multiple times as long as this is filled multiple times in that color. And like I said, I could even start multiple of these brown lines, or I could have multiple blue, I can have every color, I can do whatever I want to in that respect. The 2s are going to run out pretty soon, the times 2 cards here. And then the next ones will be more expensive, meaning you'll have to make money. Take your hand and chuck it as money, but then the scoring for those will be times 3 and eventually 15, but times 4. So lots of high scores near the end of the game. You're going to continue until you've scored all 10 times. And that's pretty much the end of the game. There's a couple of other things I want to explain. And in the deck are some Joker cards, which, let's see if we can come across one here. They are gray, they look like that. These are conductors. And the way that works is that he can be played as a passenger to any color. That's one use. The other use he has is I can play him to a color in front of me. And while he does not add any victory points, he might help me get a bonus scoring, which is if I ever hit 8 cards in a single stack, then I score that right then and there. And in fact, it goes here on the scoring pad in a bonus line, the extra tours line there. So that's one thing you can do, or you can play them up here. You could also, obviously, make it money. One final thing to be aware of is that when you run out the deck, it will be reshuffled. However, at that moment, when it's depleted, each player loses half their money. So you need to be very careful of when it's time to pay that cash, because if you don't keep an eye on this and you've fallen out of sync with when you should be really low on cash, then that could be a big hit to your money flow for the game. You have to make sure that you're either not throwing a lot of money in here when that's about to hit, or that you spend it. You need to keep an eye on that. But that's pretty much the game. You continue doing that. You score 10 times, possibly more, with that bonus scoring. And a score sheet might look something like this. Now the extra tours line here should actually be empty. These numbers should be down here in total. That's pretty much what a score sheet will look like. This line here was 0-0 because a color was filled up to 4 and neither player had that color. So let's say blue took the 4th card and I did not have blue and Tom did not have blue, for example. But that's basically the game. High score wins. One thing that really surprised me about Trambahn is how quickly the game plays. The end game, every time I've played, always sneaks up on me, and there's a really nice tension at the end of the game where you know there's only going to be 2 more scorings, and you really want it to be the scores, the colors that you are strong in, so you can make that progress and defeat your opponent there at the end. I like the cadence of the game quite a bit. I think it flows very well. I like the money management aspect of it, though it's very light. And ultimately, the game overall is a light card game for 2 players. I have heard complaints that the game is too random. What happens in the game is too random. And I don't necessarily disagree that there's not a ton of control here. But for a relaxing 2-player card game that has a nice cadence to it, sort of has a quick development, and then at the end gets tens, I think this is a solid entry in that category. I like 2-player card games. I like Lost Cities. I like that style of game, and I think this is a really solid game in that genre, which, while not as mechanically tight, perhaps, as a game like Lost Cities, which seems to be perfectly put together to make you feel like you're messing up or like you're still tens all the time. This one, on the other hand, feels a lot breezier at the beginning of the game, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I like that. I don't think it's necessary for a game in this style to feel like it's crunching you down right off the bat. The game has that at the end. And I think that's the appropriate place for it, because the beginning is a little more calm. You can, I need to get this color, I'm going to get that. And then once those ×2 cards are gone, you're like, now I need 10 cards, money cards. And then eventually it's like, now I need 15 and my money's running low and the end of the deck is coming up. And I need to make sure I spend that money before the deck runs out or half my money's gone. And, wait a second, we're only going to score twice more. And so it has a great build to it. I like the rules and the way they come together to give the game a solid beginning, middle, end, which is hard to accomplish in a game this simple, really. And so I recommend it. There's been a few other games in this genre lately, and this, I think, is one of my favorites in that style of game that's come along in a while. So Trambahn, really solid game, looks good, well put together, nice feel to it. Check this one out if you're looking for a simple card game to play just 2-player. Trambahn deserves a look. Check it out.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.